You want to pray?
Yeah, come on.
Cool.
Father God, thank you for this time. Thank you for life. We don't deserve it, but you have a purpose. The fact that we keep waking up is testament of our purpose. And I just pray that you could be present in this moment and allow the truth to be spilled out, no matter how uncomfortable it could feel. And I pray that through this time, many souls can be reached and saved. And that we could do it in a way that glorifies you and not in a way that is self-glorifying, but to build up your kingdom, Lord. I pray that you would shrink me so that you and me may be made bigger. And same with Chantel and for the viewers. And I pray all this in your son's mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. We're here. We are here. You're here. Welcome to God, What the Heck? Hopeful Stories for When Life Sucks. Super excited to be here. Super excited that you're back, or if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. And we're going to get into it. This is where we talk through testimonies of what God has done in people's lives, how he has met them along their journey, how he has saved them, how he's come through in their worst times. And the goal is to always find a silver lining in whatever's happening, to give you hope in the way that God can show up for you and those around you, and just to be a place for God's glory to be shown through our lives. And so really, really excited that you're here. If you didn't know, God, What the Heck started out as a book. It's 100 devotionals for when life sucks. And so this is a platform of other people's stories, me interviewing other people's stories, other people on their stories about God. But this is a devotional where I walk you through kind of my stories and join them with the scriptures to help you fight for your faith. And so if you want to get it, if you need a fighting manual, it's on Amazon. The link is in the description box. And, you already know, do all the things, like, comment, share, all of it. So we're going to jump in, but first we're going to share my favorite scripture, our favorite scripture on this podcast. It is Revelation 12:11. It says, they triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. Wow. And I love this scripture because this is the whole reason we're here. God tells us how to defeat Satan with his formula. Wow. And it's by the blood of the Lamb, by the blood of Jesus, which we can never forget Jesus. We can't take any credit for our testimony, right? But it's also by the word of our testimony, by sharing intentionally what God has done in our lives so that other people can see his works. It's not about us, but it's about him. And so that's why we're here today. And I love that last part. It says they did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. It takes so much courage to share the stories about who you were before God, because we're sharing these stories from a point of we're not there anymore. And so these things can be deep. These things can be hard. These things can be painful. These things can be intense. But at the end of the day, the more we can share who we were, the more glory God gets when you see who we are now. And so I love that last part. I'm just so excited because we have my bro Sevauge in the house. And come on, Sevauge. Listen, y'all, Sevauge is a recording artist. He is so talented. He's one of the most zealous people I've ever met. He's cool. He has a vibe about him. Like, he's always a vibe, y'all. He's like, well, you know. But you know what else I love, Sevauge, about you is you are unapologetic about who you were before. But you're also unapologetic about the life you live for God now. Yeah. And so I'm really excited for us to hear. Yeah. Let's go. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're so funny. Okay. So, What kind of music do you do? Because
Yeah.
he's a recording artist. So what kind of
Yeah.
music?
I rap, but lately I've been getting more into like alternative rock kind of sounding. I like the guitar, sad, slow music. I've never really been good at doing hype songs.
Okay.
It's not my, I don't know, it's never just been my strength. More R&B, like kind of like a '90s, early 2000s R&B kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So that's my bag lately. I wouldn't say that I make like music that at face value is extremely obviously Christian.
Yeah.
I talk about God and glorify Jesus in my music, but I talk a lot about like my life and what I've been through, what I've seen, and I like to write love songs, like pseudo love songs a little bit. So
Yeah.
that's where I've been at a lot lately. I produce a little bit,
Yeah.
content create, and I try to be like full scale where I can touch any area of the creative process and control it.
Yeah. No, I love that, and you're a super heartsy creator. You say you write love songs. It's so true. Like he be having you in your feelings. I'm like, okay, Sevauge. Oh man, I love it. I love it. So let's jump into your story.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Yeah, I was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I was born in Iowa City, Iowa. Lived in Cedar Rapids. I moved when I was 20, and I went to Austin, Texas afterward.
Okay. So it's so funny because Iowa is one of those places where you're like, wait.
Like, what is that?
They got black people there?
Yeah,
like,
not no more. I left. We are black devoid.
Oh, wait. No, but for real, like, how was growing up in Iowa?
Yeah, it was boring. It's a slow area, and it's a good place to raise a family once you've kind of, I would say, established yourself and experienced some things, because there isn't much to experience in Iowa in general. There's college football, which is huge. We're a Big Ten state, so Iowa Hawkeyes are really popular and prevalent. But outside of that, it's just easy to be a young man and just either be involved in the streets, honestly, where like you're selling drugs a little bit, like robbing people a little bit and living that kind of a life, or you go the education route and you become like either a teacher, a nurse, or you work at the cereal factory, or you go to like Rockwell Collins, which is like a aerospace like weapons manufacturer.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so two paths in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Which one did you choose?
Yeah, I was really from Jump Street. I think my family did what they could to guide me down a path that would have been more like righteous at face value about like education. But I chose the streets.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was attractive to me. People glorified it a lot where I came from, to where like girls liked it. If you were selling drugs a little bit and you have like this edge about you. So I leaned into that more. My dad was a pimp and my mom was a stripper and a prostitute and a sex worker.
Oh wow.
And my aunts, a lot of them also were exotic dancers or sex workers or getting clean off the dope. So my environment prepared me for that life, and I chose it from, I would say, 14 to 20. I got heavy involved in streets. Well, not really heavy. It's still a small area, but heavy in comparison to what you could get into in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
Versus living in like an LA or like a Detroit or like Florida.
Wow. So, I mean, God definitely protected you just from the get-go, because if you would have been in LA doing that,
I'd be way worse off.
Man, that's crazy. But wow, looking at what your parents did, I love how you said, like, even giving them credit, like they did the best they could.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they were in that lifestyle themselves. So like how much could they really protect you from it?
Yeah.
Right? Did you know, when as just like a little child, did you know what was going on around you?
I didn't, but I would say I was taught when I was very young by a woman that was very close to me. I was about 6, and she taught me how to I don't want to say it without like searing anybody's conscience, but she taught me how to have sex very young. So my environment really
Oh
quickly
my gosh.
matured me in like a really weird way. And
Yeah.
I started to do things very young that were abnormal,
Mm,
and my feelings at that time were very abnormal too.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I hate to I hate to hear that because I mean you say she taught you how to have sex, but that's molestation, you know.
Is it abnormal? Yeah, it's abnormal.
I mean I would it should be abnormal. Sadly, it's becoming more and more prevalent, you know. But I'm sorry you were introduced to that at such a young age. Like as such a little boy, like at 6, like I have a niece. Like I remember when my niece and nephew were 6.
Yeah,
Like you're so innocent,
yeah,
and to be taught that is just heartbreaking.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it it's in a weird way, like it matures you because you've seen and done things that like really don't make any sense to be involved in. And then, like my family dynamics that I had an aunt who was she was a crack smoker, you know what I'm saying? And she ended up losing her kids to the system. My other aunt lost her kids to the system for a little bit. She put a hot frying pan on one of my cousin's backs and burned her when she was angry.
Oh
And
my
like
gosh.
I would get verbally abused when I was young. My parents would leave town for long periods of time, and I'd be home alone. And there was a day that my aunt was smoking crack in our kitchen, and then her and my mom got into a fight. And I remember like what crack and meth smell like to this day.
Wow.
And my dad went to jail a lot when I was a kid. They used to physically fight. You know what I'm saying? This was a strange environment. Like I had an uncle that would put his hands on me in like weird places too. So I try to move on past it, but a lot of it's just strange to
Yeah.
like to even think about because this is your family, so you don't want to like you don't want to hold them in that light. You know what I'm saying? There's redeeming qualities to everybody, but it's still difficult for me to like you know move on from it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Oh my gosh. Thank you for. Dang. Hello. I didn't know that. I'm so sad. Oh my gosh.
Facts
I'm like
about me.
literally crying.
Yeah, I don't like to let on with that. A lot of times, it's like some of the things that I like to like keep to myself. A lot of times, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Dang it. Dang. I'm sorry.
This is what it is.
Can I hug you? I'm sorry. Oh, dang it. Oh my god. We back, y'all. That's the first tears on God, what the heck? Oh man, and they were mine. I definitely did not expect that to happen. For real, I'm be honest. Um, but oh man, I thank you for sharing that. But that just like impacted me so much because I know you. You know, I see you multiple times a week because we go to church together,
Yeah.
and like you're such a force. Like you're such an amazing person, and you go so hard for God now. And I had no idea that your life started out that way. Like that's such darkness, that someone would do that to a little boy.
Yeah, a lot of people are just unwell, you know. The
Yeah.
woman that did it to me, she had a run-in with one of her family members that did what she had said was some unspeakable things to her, and her mother was abusive to her as well. God rest her soul. She passed away before I got a chance to meet her, but I don't come from people that I would say operate under in the normal realms of reality.
Right,
You
right.
know?
And a lot of times somebody who would do that to someone else, specifically to a child, it's because they learned that from somebody else.
Yeah.
They had it done to them.
Yeah.
And so it's not from a place of like judgment or anything like that. It's wrong when they do it, and it was wrong when it was done to them.
Yeah. You know, I look at it like it's a form of control, and it's a form of not having impulse control. So where the person that did it to me, I can't blame them because they've forgotten that they've done it. And I think with a lot of people, it's like trauma. It's where like you block it out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm holding this handful of rocks. You know what I mean? But like they've got a whole backpack full of them. You know, and I just got a handful, and I'm trying to show them like, no, this is what you gave me. But to them, they're like, nah, I don't. Didn't it just doesn't register, you know what I mean? And this person's always struggled with mental health and control and sexual outbursts, you know. So I can't. It's just what am I supposed to do, you know? Like it's one thing to be like, no, you did this to me, but it's another thing when you say you did this to me, and they're like, I don't remember that. So it's like at some level you feel crazy, but you're being gaslit into a false version of reality. And then you want to not believe that it happened either because you got to deal with this person so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've definitely had a conversation where I was like, nah, you used to do this to me. You used to you used to behave this way. You hurt me here and here and here, and to have that person say no.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
There's
a
whole
makes
nother.
You feel crazy.
Yeah.
And
yeah, and you're like, but I know I'm not crazy because I know it.
Because I experienced this.
Right. Yeah. Like I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
But no, that makes sense. Wow. So all of that happening as a child and you growing up just engulfed in the street lifestyle and the sex lifestyle and all of that, like sex trade. And then growing up, of course you had pain and darkness that you were going to try to, reconcile. How did that, like, what did your life look like from, like, as you got into like high school and teenage years?
When I was in high school, again, my family wanted me to be more normal. So like I was taking guitar lessons. My grandfather taught me how to play guitar. I was in dance, I was in a dance company. I was learning how to do tap dance, hip hop, and all these other things, but there was a side of me that like I still wanted to be like everybody else because my other friends had like normal families, they had normal friendships, and I was in a place where I grew up without money. My dad would jump in trash cans and pull out cans, 5 cents on the can, and ride a bike to do it. So like I had some friends that saw my dad jump in their trash cans and pull out cans. So a lot of it was me trying to overcompensate for knowing that I came from like a family that wasn't well to do, but they tried their best, and my mom doing what she did to make money as well. It was weird being 14, 15 years old, wanting to have your own personality and your own experiences, but like your friend's parents or like your friend's dad or someone in their family has gotten like a lap dance from your mom, or like they've paid for sex from your mom, and it's weird in a small town where that happens. So like there's already this like thing going on. So my high school experience, I wanted to get away really early. So I would do anything that would have me not be around my family. I was grounded frequently. My dad loved me, you know what I'm saying? Not like it's a negative mark against him, but like I believe that he kind of could tell that like any young boy, you have the propensity to either go really bad or be excellent. And my dad just wanted me to be excellent. So grounding me was his way of, making sure that I still was doing the right thing. But whenever I would be off punishment, which is funny to say, but whenever I did have the opportunity, I'd go with my homies, and my parents were, they smoked marijuana at the time. So like I would steal their weed and go to my homie's house, and we would all get high together. We had one of my other young friends, his little brothers, go steal liquor for us from a local Walmart. So we used to have kickbacks at his house and smoke out his living room. There was a time, and this is all 14 to 16 when I was indulging in this.
So young still.
I stopped doing some of the stuff afterward, but I kept smoking and drinking and partying after that. I mean, who doesn't, right? But we used to try to rob people of their weed, set them up, and like meet them in like a Walmart parking lot, hit a lick on them real quick. And these are people that like we locally know. It's a small town, so like it's weird trying to rob somebody, setting them up with a fake phone number, getting them on the Text Now app, which is like like Kick essentially, where it's a fake number, but you can still communicate with it, and trying to get them to fall for the ploy, stealing their dope, but having to see them in school. You know what I'm saying? Which is like a strange dynamic to have.
Yeah.
But after a minute, it's just like, what are you gonna do? We were all trying to make it out in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
So my other homies were athletes. I picked up show choir because I like to perform. I love music. I love arts, and I had a friend who was in show choir with me. He was being drug tested by his family, so he would smoke what was called synthetic, where it wasn't weed, but it would give you like a 20-30 minute high. And me and him would smoke synthetic, and me and our other homies would also smoke synthetic, and like it would rot our brains, and we would be in like these catatonic states, just tweaking out. It was weird, you know what I'm saying? And my friend's mom, she was always working, so she didn't know. My mom and dad had no idea, but they knew that I was stealing their weed. You know what I'm saying? And we were just young kids. It's weird because you don't think it's addictive, but it is addictive.
Yeah.
Because any euphoric can become habit forming. You can be addicted to success.
Yeah.
Or you can be addicted to substances. And that all creates the same feeling. So we were addicts, super young. Just doing what young kids do, just trying to make it happen, enjoy life. And over time, we grew like bad reputations, but our main homie's an athlete, and this is a guy that like I was never really a follower, but I was definitely one of his followers. It's where like whatever he said, this was like, I bet we're doing that. And you know what I'm saying? I didn't have my own personality yet, and they gave me personality at that time. I didn't realize that I was a horrible influence. I had another friend who was an athlete. I've always gotten along well with athletes. Always, my entire life. It's like artists. It's like artists and athletes.
They just go together.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Just the thing.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get him to smoke weed with me all the time and like drink with me. And for a minute, he was trying to self-improve, really heavy on it. But I would just try to drag him down, and I didn't realize that I was doing that, but that's what I was doing. I was a horrible influence to a lot of people around me. A lot of my friends were aspiring to become criminals, and I didn't think that I was. But you look back on things and you recognize, no, I literally was aspiring to be a criminal too.
Yeah. And you look back, and I mean, of course you were too young to really realize this now, but of course it makes sense that because of how you grew up and because of all the things that happened to you so early on, like you didn't know who you were. You were trying to find that and probably trying to numb and escape a lot of things going on inside that we don't really understand at that young age,
Yeah.
So that makes sense. That's where you would go. You eventually moved from Iowa.
Yeah.
What took you to Texas?
Yeah, I was depressed, and from 17, I moved out of my dad's when I was 16, 17 years old. I lived with one of my friends, and me and him we were selling drugs. he ended up, I was a getaway driver at the car, so he ended up robbing this dude and tased him in the neck.
Oh my gosh.
And he just fell out, and I had not excessive amounts of dope, but I had enough, and I used to front people, so like I would give them dope, and they would pay me back later. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I had 3 different friends of mine that I was supplying, and I had a little dead-end job. My car got stolen. I got my car back from being stolen, and I was binging off of ecstasy and Molly a lot. I had this little girlfriend at the time, and I just recognized my life wasn't going nowhere. I was suicidal. I think I tried to kill myself twice before I graduated. So life after high school, self-discovery. You know, I had a girlfriend at this time. I'm getting somewhere with all this, I promise.
No,
Me and
listen,
her were.
we are here.
Yeah.
We are here to hear your story. Okay.
So me and her were partying, and there's a town called Marion, and we were getting drunk in Marion, young kids. I was maybe 19 at the time. And we were in the back seat of her friend's car. There was a girl I was talking to at the gas station, being me at the time, trying to, maneuver a certain way. And I got back in the car, and she was like, "Who is that?" I was like, "Don't worry about it."
Oh.
So she smacked me. So
Heck no.
I choked her in the back seat of her friend's car, and
Oh my gosh.
I cursed her out. I'm choking her in the back seat. Me and her would fight each other at my house. So we were already like in a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
We'd fight all the time. I would throw her around my bedroom. She would punch me, smack me in the face, and I would just choke this girl, and then we would figure it out.
Dang.
And she ran out of the car and then ran home. This is like 1:00 in the morning, and I was convinced I was going to go to jail for this. We ended up breaking up.
It's probably a good thing.
Thank God, right? So I was on and off, just popping mollies all the time. My other homies were crazy off the Xanny bars, and I had fronted my friend who was a basketball player that wanted to play overseas. He had an injury. He was injury prone, but still an amazing athlete. And he needed some drugs to sell because he wasn't, was looking to make money and still be an athlete.
Yeah.
So I fronted him some ecstasy. I think he had some Xanny bars off me too. Well, it wasn't from me, but he had some Xanny bars too, and I gave him some weed to sell. And
this might be a stupid question.
Yeah.
What's a Xanny bar?
A Xanax.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Please, like,
what do you mean?
I'm sorry.
What do you mean? But yeah.
Listen,
what is that?
I don't know these things.
What is that? Yeah, Xanax. And I fronted him.
I mean, I've heard it. I thought that probably it was, but I never heard it called that.
Yeah, no, they were real popular for a long time. I think they still are. And it's easy to get a script for Xanax too. Right. Really easy to. You just gotta say you're anxious, or like someone in your family gets them, then you steal their pills.
Yeah,
but
don't do that.
Kids at home listening, don't do Xanax. Don't do no pills, actually. But yeah, he got a front. He was smoking. He had a kickback where he was a rotation up. So his neighbor, coincidentally enough, had smelled some weed, and they called the police. So he got popped, and he was trying to flush the dope. It's difficult when you have this much time, like a twitch response to react.
Yeah.
So, make a long story short, he went to jail, got bailed out. I was afraid that I was going to go to jail too. There was a 2-week notice. I had told my girlfriend at the time. I was like, "Yo, I'm going to go to Texas." I talked to my sister. I have my half sister, and I said, "Yo, can I come live with you?" Mm-hmm. And I had already purchased my train ticket. I had probably like $375. I sold the car I had, and I took the train to Texas. My mom and dad dropped me off at the train station. It was sad, but I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
I needed to get my life straight. I just knew I wasn't gonna go anywhere. It was either in jail or I was gonna die. And I told myself when I was maybe, I think 19 actually, I said, if I don't leave Cedar Rapids before I'm 21, I will kill myself. There was no end. There was no end. I just knew I wasn't going to go anywhere.
And you were dead serious when you said that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had every intention to. I didn't value life.
Yeah.
I felt like I had more purpose in me at the time. And, my other friends were going in and out of jail. It was only so few options I had. And I couldn't get right at that time.
Yeah.
But I had it in me to do good. I just wasn't doing good. So
Yeah.
I moved. I took the train. While I was on the train, my sister actually had told me that I couldn't move in with her. She had no space. So I was
dang.
on the train, and I was talking to this guy named Zach, and we were talking, struck up good conversation. This is something that I believe God put together.
Yeah.
And he was like, you could maybe come stay with us, you know. And I got off the train.
Okay, Zach.
And shout out Zach. And his aunt, her name was Teresa. So shout out Mother Teresa. She listened to my little story, and she was like, "Yeah, you can come live with us." And I moved in with them. I lived in the north part of Austin, Texas, and off of Metric Boulevard, in these nice apartments. And I was like, all right, I'm getting straight right now, you know what I mean? But I ended up, Zach he moved to Texas to get off of heroin. So I was back around without realizing it, but I didn't care. I was in too deep at this point. So I was back around addicts again, and Teresa's boyfriend, his name was Corey. He was a recovering alcoholic. So like when I ended up getting my hands on weed a lot because I liked it. I was trying to go clean, but I couldn't. My neighbor at the apartment complex was also a weed smoker. His name was he called himself Brother Boo. He was
come on, Brother Boo.
Brother Boo. He was a street pastor, so he would go to the underpass on the south side of Austin and go preach to people, and would bring food to the homeless, and would go in and out of churches. And he used to like argue with the pastors and stand up mid-service and be like, "This is heresy."
Oh my gosh!
I was like this guy's disciple, basically. You know what I mean? So there was a day that I was smoking weed. I gave Corey some of the weed. He smoked and tweaked out and started to make a mess of Teresa's apartment. And he broke her chandelier and
there was something else in that weed.
Fan. Yeah, he was having it. He snatched her fan down, and there was glass everywhere. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. So I was like, well, what am I going to do here? I ended up selling perfume, trying to get my life right. So I met a guy named Michael Gilchrist, who taught me how to do sales. I was commission only, so I would walk around the streets of Austin, Texas with people that were also in the company selling perfume. And the point of it was to eventually, he would help us get our own office and make a business out of it too. So I met my kid's mother doing that as well, and me and her would sell perfume together. I had a business partner. Her name was Marlena. She put a lot of faith in me and thought that I could have been good, you know, and over time I got better at it, and I would travel around Texas, around Austin and other areas, and we would sell together. And me and my kid's mother, and I ain't going to disclose her name. She was dope, man. It was a great time, and we got closer. I had I rented out because of thinking, God, I got kicked out of their spot. But I was sleeping on Brother Boo's floor with I had no pillows, no blankets, so I would just insulate in a couple jackets and like wrap myself up, and I would turn one of my other t-shirts into a pillow and sleep on it, and we would read the Bible together. He would preach to me a little bit, and we would go smoke weed on his patio. Great guy. He also had enough of me living on his floor and not paying any rent, because I wasn't really making money at this time. I was still learning how to sell.
Yeah.
And one of the people that Marlena knew was a girl that lived in student housing, and she was moving to Georgia, and she had maybe 8 months left on her lease, or 6 to 8 months left on her lease. She had the whole floor of student housing to herself, and she was like, I need someone to move in. She was just making a maneuver. So Marlena let me know. I ended up moving into her empty apartment, and I paid rent in her name.
Yeah.
At this time, I had finally got good at selling the perfume that I could afford to pay rent. So I moved in my kid's mother. I moved in my other people that I was selling with, and it was all of us in this open floor of student housing.
Wow.
Until other people finally moved in, and it was a girls' dorm. So it was supposed to be girls only in there.
Yeah.
And we had these 2 Indonesian roommates. One of them, her name was Queenie, and I would be out smoking weed on the patio, and she would come home and scream because she'd never seen black people before.
What?
So she would scream when she saw me and my kid's mother. We didn't have our kid yet, but she would scream seeing us, and me and her would always be like, "Yo, what is this girl's problem right now. Make a long story short, I wasn't managing my money well. My kid's mother was saving money with our mentor, Michael, and she was buying a car. So she bought the car, and make a long story short, moving forward, he ended up stealing her money when we needed to pay rent. So she was like, well, you know what? I'm quitting. I'm done with this business. I'm exhausted, y'all. We had our own office, but we were always working, so we never had a chance to really enjoy being business owners.
Yeah.
We just had the title of business owner.
Yeah.
And our third partner would always be in the office focusing on recruiting, and I would be the trainer. So I'd take them out and show them how to sell. So when we couldn't pay rent, because I wasn't doing laundry, I would just go buy new clothes all the time. So we had this apartment full of clothes and like furniture and stuff, but there was no one saving. So when her savings was stolen, we had to go. We were getting evicted. You know what I'm saying? We also weren't on the lease, so we weren't supposed to be there in the first place.
Yeah.
We moved to Dallas. I couldn't go. We wanted to go to Vegas, but I went to jail in this time for doing graffiti of all things too. It was crazy.
You're like, listen, I'm doing this, and this, and you're gonna take me to jail for graffiti?
Crazy, right? Of all the things that I would have gone to jail for, it was graffiti.
That is funny.
Crazy.
It shouldn't be funny.
Crazy. And it would have been a felony because of the size of the piece that I had done. It was so big. They go based on damages. There was enough in damages that it should have been a felony, but it ended up being talked down to a misdemeanor.
Nice.
And I couldn't go to Vegas because I didn't want to be extradited from Vegas or flee, and that would have made the crime elevate and escalate, so it would have been worse. So we moved to Dallas with her family. We were living on her sister's
floor. So you can't be extricated in Dallas, but you can in Vegas?
No, so like, because it was a Texas crime, so it was easier.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so sorry. I was going to court in Travis County once a month, and I was on probation. So once a week, I had to do a phone call and call the PO, and if I missed a phone call without having a reason for it, I would have had a warrant out for my arrest, and they would have came and got me, and I would have had to sit my time until my final court date.
Got it.
So we were in Dallas, sleeping on her sister's floor, who was a single mom of 2. And, well, she had one kid at the time. She ended up having her second one. And we would go from hotel to hotel, basically living out of her car. Her mom would pay for hotel rooms for us. And I had stolen some product from this guy, like maybe $3,000 worth of product, so that I could still sell. We were trying to have our own company. And it was a clothing line that we wanted to start up. So to make a long story short, we were in Dallas. It was me and her family. I, to them, was probably a loser. You know what I'm saying? I was 21 at the time.
Yeah.
Didn't have my stuff together. Her mom worked in the housing authority. I ended up getting a Section 8 voucher. Moved into a neighborhood called Stop 6, which is one of the poorest neighborhoods in Fort Worth, Texas. And so I got a 2-bedroom apartment. Me and her broke up, got back together. She moved in. We conceived our child. I moved my family from Cedar Rapids to Texas to live with me. My dad told me he was panhandling and wasn't making any money. My mom and dad are both disabled, so they were getting SSI checks, and they just couldn't afford their rent. So my dad was panhandling, and I wasn't paying rent. So I said, y'all could live with us. They moved in.
Wow.
My daughter's mother. It's a lot.
That was like, wow.
It's a lot.
After all that had happened back in Iowa, and then you choose to move your parents in with you. How did you find that in your heart to do that? Because, I mean, you're a better person than me. I would have been like, I don't even know. Like, you don't figure it out. I don't know where you're going to go, but
I ain't going to be here.
He's not going to be living with me. I don't know if I could have found that.
Yeah. No,
wow.
There's Just the Two of Us is one of the songs that I would think about a lot, and I would cry because my mom she left me a couple times when I was a kid, so it was just me and my dad. for a period of time. And when my dad would be in and out of jail dealing with my mom, I grew an attachment to my father. I love my mom, but I never learned anything from her. She was very sick mentally, and so she was going through her stuff. So it was difficult for me to bond with her. I don't think I've ever learned anything real from my mom. She's never really existed in reality. You know what I mean? And so I moved them in because I love my family. It's hard for me to cut that tie with them.
Wow.
So we lived together in a 2-bedroom apartment. My cousin Finesse at the time ended up living in Garland, and I thought he was just out on the street. So he called me one day and said, "You're in Texas?" I said, "Yeah, I'm in Dallas." He said, "I'm in Garland." So I went and picked him up, and then I moved him in. And me and my kid's mother thought about adopting him and putting him in a school in Fort Worth. So we were this close to doing it, but the neighborhood I was in, he ended up getting jumped by everybody in the apartment complex because he was calling himself trying to hustle out there too. So trying to sell Xanax again, back with the Xanny bars. He ended up getting jumped by everybody in the neighborhood. So people were literally chasing him around the complex. So me and my family were like, "Yo, what do we do about Finesse?"
Yeah.
My dad said, "Take him back. I'll drive him back to Iowa." So drove him back to Cedar Rapids, dropped him off. My family came back again. She's pregnant as ever at this time, and we're arguing a lot. One of the many low points I had, we were just getting at each other verbally in her car on the interstate, and we're talking crazy to each other. And I was like, "You know what? I'll crash this right now." So I almost crashed her car, and we going down. You know what I'm saying? So one of my craziest moments I've had among many. And so it was a high stress pregnancy. You know what I'm saying? And my family and her would argue, so I would come home with them having shouting matches. And we had our kid, broke up, got back together, moved into another apartment. I gave my mom and dad my apartment. Me and her ended up getting evicted. I was selling meat door to door for a company, and I was making money, good money at the time too, but she hated the job I had. I would cheat on her, and she went through my phone a couple times and would see these messages from other women and like naked pictures I was getting at the time too. And I would just say, "Yeah, I wanted you to see that." You know what I'm saying? I don't care. Like, you can go. I don't care. I don't need you. You know what I'm saying? So she saw that, wanted to break up, pregnant at the time. So we got back together. She would keep seeing stuff in my phone. And I lied to her about all these girls I was keeping on the side. She went through my phone again. Our kid was maybe 5 months old at the time. And she said, "I don't want to talk about us being together." So I moved out of the apartment, gave it to her. I said, "You keep the house. I'll just buy a new one." You know what I'm saying? And I was going to pay rent on it too. I found out my mom and dad were living in a hotel on the east side of Dallas, near downtown, on the outskirts of it. My mom was still stripping and was selling sex out of the hotel. So I moved into the hotel with them. I was saving money to get a new apartment. So I got one. Me and my family I was like, "Yo, I can't take care of you guys anymore. This is becoming a lot."
Right.
So I couldn't pay rent at my kid's mother's apartment. We were behind, so I had like a $2,000 deficit to pay, plus rent at the new apartment I had. So I was like, "Yo, I love you, but I can't pay this." She got evicted, moved everything into a storage unit. So I essentially had let my kid almost hit the street because I just couldn't foot the bill. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that's a lot. Yeah. Like it's just
at 22.
At 22, it amazes me that you still, like, you were really trying to do the right things.
I wanted to.
Like, you genuinely, and you can see that. Like, obviously, there's a lot of the wrong things, but, like, you were trying to rebuild your life. You were trying to take care of your family. You were trying, right? And so, was God, obviously, we know now that God was in the middle of it, all along the way, but, like, was God in your frame of reference at any point in time? Like, did you pray during this time? Did you believe in God at this time? Like, what?
Yeah.
What
I
did that
went
look
to my second mentor. His name was Jeff. I would sell the meat for him, and he gave me Bibles, and we did a morning prayer. We would read scriptures together, and this is a guy that wanted me to. Maybe I had a belief that he would have had me become a manager at the company or something, and eventually give me a location too. And he would pour into me. I went to his church a couple times, and they didn't have proper doctrine, but I didn't know this at the time.
Right.
So I did the altar call, and I
well,
prayed Jesus into my heart. And my kid's mother wanted me to go to the Potter's house with her, where T.D. Jakes preached at.
Yeah.
And I was hearing him deliver a sermon one day, and I was high. I was smoking before I went in. We would argue about that too. Why are you smoking before church? I was like, shut up. So, I'm a horrible guy back then. I was not right at all, but I went to church a couple times. I hated T.D. Jakes. I was like, this guy is just trying to get these girls in here motivated up to pay him. Cool guy though. I mean, very motivational on the sermon, but it just wasn't. Just wasn't it. You know what I'm saying? So, I hated the Potter's house. I checked out his church. Did the altar call. Never went back. It just went right back into my life how it was. I had some form of belief. I had Bibles. I would pray, but I was so addicted to smoking, drinking. I picked up a small alcohol problem at this time when me and my kid's mother were together. I was miserable, and she was too. I'm not going to sit here and downplay what she was experiencing, because I was not a good man. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't a good man.
Yeah. So obviously you're not living this life now. Like, what would you say was your God, what the heck moment that kind of turned you around?
Yeah. So I'm gonna gloss over some details. I ended up moving to San Diego. I moved to LA shortly after.
Okay.
And I was talking to my kid's mother, and mind you, I hadn't seen my kid in years. I was under a restraining order.
Dang.
Yeah. I wasn't a good man, So I had found out that I lost legal access to my kid. Well, I had told her, I was like, if you're not going to let me see my daughter, just take me off. I don't even care. I'm not going to worry about this anymore. If you're not going to let me see my kid, I don't care. And I can't blame her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Part of me wants to, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I lost legal rights to my daughter, and I was in the hole with child support. So there was a warrant out for my arrest, but matter of fact, the warrant got dropped because I was no longer on paper the father of this kid. You know what I'm saying? So I had this child support debt, but no child anymore. And I found that out through a lawsuit that I had, that I was supposed to get a good chunk of money back, but they were like, nah, child support garnished the amount that was necessary, and then you get the rest. And the amount that they garnished was about a year and some change worth of money from the settlement. And I put two and two together. So me and her are talking. I found out that she did take me off.
Yeah.
About a year. My kid was about a year and some change old, maybe 2 years almost at this time. And I used to traffic weapons with people, drugs. I hung out with a lot of sex workers. I was never outside of that realm too much. So me and them would travel out of the state together and across the country. And we fell out. I moved to San Diego, lived with a stripper for a little bit. Me and her fell out. I moved to LA. I slept in an RV, and I had ended up getting into a hostel. I was selling CDs. So at this time, I was smoking a lot, drinking a lot, doing a lot of drugs. And I just felt cursed. I started a small business up, and all my money went into it. Completely wasted it. Made no money at all. Probably ended up losing close to $17,000.
Wow.
I was broke, you know what I'm saying? And broken. Found out my kid wasn't my kid anymore. And I was like, all right, God, I'm going to kill myself. I'm done. My mom was in and out of mental hospitals. So I just, directionless, completely directionless. I'd done a bunch of shows as a music artist, as a secular artist, and I was going nowhere. And I was like, all right, man, enough is enough, So I ended up meeting an IT official when I was selling CDs at a parking lot, and he invited me out to church. I said no. So about a year went by, and at this time, I had thought there was one Christian I knew, and it was IT.
Wow.
So I reached out to him, started to study the Bible, and it's been up ever since.
Wow. So like just a random meeting. Like
Yeah.
your life is in the toilet. You're like on the edge of suicide at this point. And this guy shares with you in a random parking lot selling CDs.
Yeah. I mean, again, it took me a year to get back to him, but he was the only Christian I knew.
And that's all it took was...
That's it. I just knew I needed Jesus.
Yeah. Wow. That's so amazing. And I'm amazed because here's the thing, like how many, you look at it and it's like how many people had walked by you? How many people who call themselves Christians had walked by you? How many people just didn't open their mouths?
Yeah.
But this guy, which shout out to Trav, he's amazing, you know. But he chose to say something, and you remembered it a year later when you were finally ready.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. And it's convicting because at the end of the day, it's like, dang, we just need to open our mouths.
Yeah.
We just need to tell people.
If you don't share, who will know about it? Because people out here aren't doing that.
Right.
A lot of people are doing the, shabba babba ding dongs, and like they're speaking in tongues and all that stuff. And like, they're having you stop and they're putting the hands on you in public, but there's not many people that are actually showing you the scriptures. And I mean, there's churches that are doing it. We're not the only ones, surely, but for the sake of the moment and context of it, if you don't talk to people, they're probably never going to hear the message. And it's at some point it becomes your fault. And it's no coincidence. IT has been very active. He's very well known in the community. People respect him because of his character and his willingness to share and to take care of people.
No, facts.
And that heart is what helped me come around when I was at my lowest moment.
Wow, that's beautiful. When you say study the Bible, what did that look like? Yeah.
So at the time, which is good, I'm glad he did this. I had to travel from downtown. Well, I lived in East LA, South Central. So I took a train to the North Hollywood train station for about 2 months, once a week, to go study with him. And Ernest Baker, Ed Gregg was in my studies, and Andrew Trujillo, Arclight Super Angel is his music name.
Yeah.
This is his band name.
And we had Andrew on God What the Heck too. Yeah, first season.
That's crazy. I'm really glad about that. So the studying process, I had a lot of things I was arguing. I never really believed in Jesus. I used to hate the name of Jesus. I thought it was the white boy, like, weak, feminine, Jared Leto looking guy. I just wasn't here. I was closer to I was closer to a Hebrew Israelite. And my thought patterns, I was like super black everything, like the Ankhs, the Egyptology, chematology, and all that.
Yeah.
To go from that to Jesus was a lot, So opening my eyes up to scriptures and letting people that knew more than me tell me and explain to me is what really helped. I just would not have opened up my heart to it without really Ernest answering the questions I had, and Travis as well. Because with their dynamics, Ernest is very straightforward to the point. He'll just lay it out. But Travis is the guy where, like, he'll ease you into it. You know what I'm saying?
He's super heartsy. He's very like gentle.
Yeah.
He's very like. It's so funny. I'm leading a Bible talk with Travis now,
come on.
And I'm learning that's how our dynamic is.
Yeah.
Like I'm Ernest.
Yeah. Someone has to.
But then Travis is like, oh, that's why everyone loves you, bro.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah. He's a kind giant.
Yeah.
And with their two dynamics, it helped everything come around. And Ed at the time like knew what it was like to live as an addict, because that's the background that I came from as well. So not everybody understood like some of the street stuff that I was involved in when I was younger, but he understood the life of an addict, being violent and having this monster inside of you that like could, if you don't have any control over it, could really destroy your life. And them being in my studies really helped me just throw away my old perceptions. I just needed God in my life. So if accepting this Jesus was what I had to do, then I sat with myself and I said, all right, Lord, if this Jesus is the way, right, then like show me something. And I ended up stumbling upon some content on YouTube where this dude was traveling in the Middle East. And make a long story short, he had a discovery of, he found the Ark of the Covenant, and there was some dried blood around the Ark, and he had the blood tested, and the blood was actually alive. I forgot his name. Maybe it's Ron Wyatt or Ron White, something to that effect. Yeah. So he had the blood tested. This is from the 80s, so this is old. Yeah. But I stumbled upon it, and I had an emotional reaction to it, and I was like, well, this is really all I needed. There was one day I was praying, and some people always say it dropped in my spirit, but something in my inside of me. I was asking for a sign. Something inside of me said, do this thing. So I got on the floor and did the Muslim prayer where you lay out like facing the light, but I was in a small space, so I couldn't face the light, so I just laid up with my hands in front of me, bowed down, and I prayed to God. I prayed, and he said, go outside. So I went outside, and then he said, look up, and I looked up, and an airplane flew by, and it said, have faith, something to that effect on the banner. And ever since then,
oh my gosh, that's crazy. Come on, God.
All right, bro. So I was, Jesus, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? Like, you, all right, but you got me. Like, you got me, man. I don't care what you look like. You could look just like Jared Leto, and I'm still with you. As much as I want you to be a black man, like whatever you are, I'm behind you. So,
that's hilarious. Which is funny because I mean, Jesus didn't look like a black man either. But he did. But he definitely.
It's okay.
He definitely did not look like Jared Leto.
He was not Jared Leto, is what I know.
Not at all. He was Jewish, and he had hair like whoa. So I mean, underneath his weave.
So you know what I'm saying?
That is hilarious, though. But like, the thing about in doing this podcast, one of the things that I have been humbled over and over and over again and encouraged by is the fact that like God meets us where we're at.
Yeah.
Like no questions. No, he's so humble that like we're not supposed to ask for a sign. He doesn't have to give us a sign, but he chooses to at times. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. But like to say that like, okay, he said to pray, he said to go outside, and then there's this airplane saying have faith. Like what?
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah. No, it's wild. There was throughout the studies, because again, I'm a relatively, without the Bible, without Jesus in my life, I'm reckless, I'm violent, and I got a way about me. I hung out with like a lot of Crips and Bloods. I would kick it in Mid-City. Mid-City is a nice area. Culver City is very nice, but the people you stumbled across in these areas are not always like that.
Yeah.
So I had gotten jumped 2 times when I was studying the Bible, and it was one of those moments where I just knew I could die any moment if I'm not careful. I got people that don't like me out here. I'm acting ignorant. I'm not treating people well. If I don't do something now, if I do die, if life does finally catch up to me, like I feel like it deserves to still. I still feel like I deserve to actually have the consequences to the life that I was choosing to live.
Yeah.
I felt like if I don't get baptized when I do die, I'm gonna just go to hell. And I was very conscious of that because life had brought me close 2 times while I was studying, and many other times before I studied the Bible. So at one point, Nate Reed, one of our shepherds, he was like, "Yeah, we can't baptize you until you stop smoking cigarettes and until you're clean and until you repent in these other areas." So I ended up getting, I was really agitated. I almost, it's sad to say, but I almost tried to fight Nate Reed, and I almost tried to fight Ernest, and I tried to fight Josiah Smith, our evangelist. I got very violent and agitated with these guys.
Hey.
Yeah, I was just trying to get saved. I was like, y'all don't get it. Like, I got enemies out here. Like, people don't like me, and it's all my fault for how I'm acting. But like, it's not registering at this time that I need to really fully change. So I go after that, and eventually I got baptized, and I finished my studies, and ever since then it's been a journey.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And it wasn't. Was it because you couldn't commit, like you hadn't decided to quit smoking, or like you weren't willing to give that up as far as part of your repentance, or it was just they were like, no, you have to quit. You know, like, what was their reasoning?
Thank you for asking. It's having an addiction. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I could, I literally say, yes, I am addicted to smoking. Then, like, when you drop the idols in your life and you repent of that, then it makes sense to be baptized. But there's no point of being baptized when you still actively have real idols, like physical things that like you struggle with. And tobacco isn't one of those things where it seems like super, like it's not going to kill you in one cigarette, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one is, I mean, people have died, but what I'm saying is, like, when you drink alcohol and you're an alcoholic, you can drunk drive and kill yourself and kill people. So that's one manifestation of addiction, whereas smoking cigarettes seems minor on the scale of addictions, but it's still the same thing. And if you don't make a habit of allowing God to be what takes the anxieties from you, then what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? So before they would allow me to actually hit the water, because it would have been something that would have took me out of the kingdom. You know what I'm saying? It's something so minor on the scales of alcoholism, cocaine, Adderall, opiates, and all these other things. It seems minor, but what it speaks to is the bigger thing.
Is the idolatry?
Is the idol.
Right. Okay. What about the addiction? Like, did the addiction go away? Like when you committed to stopping, or
no,
like
it didn't. If anything, you fight so hard for something, and then you finally get it, and then there's this moment where it's like, okay, now I've won. What do I do? You know what I'm saying? So I quit. I was clean for 30 days, and they baptized me in February of last year.
Come on.
And then I ended up going right back to smoking cigarettes again.
Yeah.
And I wasn't telling anybody about it, so it was a secret sin. And without going into storytelling about some of the other stuff that I got involved in really early in my discipleship, Ernest gave me a strong rebuke and called me disgusting and
come on, rebuke,
laid me out, and I was like, I ain't never gonna let no grown man talk to me like this. But and for the sake of, I thought of my daughter. I thought of why I wanted to get baptized was for my family, my daughter, so that I could fix that and eventually have a relationship with her. In the face of that, I accepted it, and I took the chemical recovery course, and through the process of 6 months of chemical recovery, which it lingered longer than it was supposed to apparently, I was able to really rid myself of that. And again, tobacco seems like it's so small and minor, but it speaks to a bigger monster inside of you, because you can shift it out for anything. So
and chemical recovery is the program in our church that helps addicts and former addicts really be free from their chemical dependence.
Yeah.
And so I saw you graduate chemical recovery. I was so proud of you.
It was good.
That was so great. It was so great.
Good.
That's amazing. So that's one thing that one aspect of your new life in Jesus, right? What does your life look like now?
Yeah, it's funny. I was hoping that everything would be fixed immediately after I got baptized, to where it was like, all right, so now I'm gonna get my kid, and I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna get my money right, and I'm gonna just get my music, and we just gonna blow up. You know what I'm saying? I started doing Christian rap before I even got baptized. So while I was studying, I was making Christian music.
Yeah.
So I had hoped quickly on that I think what it really was I was looking to have this transactional relationship with God, where it's like, all right, I'm doing it your way. That's me now. But what it's been has actually been a process of suffering for God now. I've suffered a lot. I never really slept well before, but I still don't sleep well. I'm tired a lot of times. I'm constantly in and out of Bible studies or sharing. If I'm not working, I'm sharing with somebody, or I'm in a study or reading. So I'm constantly sharpening myself as a disciple. So as hard as I was going in the world, going after life as I was living it before, and now I'm doing it, but I'm doing it for God and to glorify Jesus. So if I could wrap up one word of my discipleship thus far, and it's not attractive, but it's biblical, it's suffering.
Yeah. And I like how you said, like, as hard as I was going in the world, I'm going that hard for God now. And the thing about the beginning of our discipleship is, like, God is trying to heal us from everything we did before following him.
Yeah.
Or not just we did, the things that happened to us. Yeah. And so it's like God is still healing you, and he's repairing, and it's like, it's kind of like that rehab mindset. When I was an athlete, I've had multiple surgeries. I have a scar right here. It's like I broke my kneecap. It's a huge scar. It was one of the most painful things I had ever happened to me. And after I got sewn up, fixed, I still had to go through the rehab process to heal. And the other day we had Cara on the show, and she said this really amazing analogy. She said, becoming a disciple and getting baptized is like getting stitched up. It's like you're fixed, but there's a lot of healing that needs to happen after that to get back to how you were originally supposed to operate. How we were originally created to be. And I just love that analogy. And so I think of, like, in hearing your story and then looking at you now, like, I've seen some of the suffering. I've seen some of the ups and downs, but I've seen a man who, before you said I wasn't a good man, but I would say you're a good man now. Not in the fact because you're a good man, but I see Jesus in you consistently and all the time in your actions, And so it's really beautiful. I think about that, and I'm just like, wow, like, God is really rehabbing you. And you look at you and you see all your talents, and you're like, he created you to be impactful. Like, you are going to change a lot of people's lives. But I think he's just preparing you. He's making sure that you have the character to support where he wants to take you with your gifts. I heard this sermon, and I know I'm talking a lot now, but like I heard this sermon one time. It was by Onikache Nduka.
Oh, wow.
He was the evangelist in Houston.
Okay.
And he was preaching about Moses. And, Moses was raised in Egypt.
Yeah.
And then he went to Midian, and then he went back to Egypt to save his people. And he was preaching about him, and he said it took God 1 year to get Moses out of Egypt, but it took God 40 years to get Egypt out of Moses.
Wow.
So that he could send him back to free his people.
That's crazy.
Right?
That's real.
Right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, because you know my story. Like, I grew up in Egypt, okay? Like, I always joke and be like, I ain't grow up in Jerusalem. I grew up in Sodom and Gomorrah, okay? Like, like for real, for real. But I think about that, and immediately Moses was like, I want to go back. I want to help. I want to save. I want to do all this stuff. And God was like, I have to prepare you first.
Yeah.
I have to sew you up, or I've sewed you up, but I have to heal you, right? I have to prepare you to get to the point where I can send you back for your people.
Yeah.
And so I look at your process and I'm just watching it, and I know it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's my talent can get me into rooms, but my character is what will keep me in a place.
Yeah.
And if my character isn't at the level or exceeding the level of my talents, then my talents don't matter at all. And my character and my actions should reflect being a disciple. And early on, if God would have put me around the people that I've been able to meet as a disciple and the situations I've been in as a disciple early on, I wouldn't have had the maturity to hold it down, and I would have made being a disciple look bad. I would have been smoking cigars. I would have been drinking alcohol, which at face, these things don't sound like they're not for disciples to do. Like, it doesn't sound bad, but when you think about if I have Jack Daniels in my cup, if I have, rum in my cup or something, and a cigar in one hand, and I talk to somebody about Jesus, and I invite them out to church or study the Bible, and have the desire to make them a disciple. If I have these things on me, or if I walk around smelling like weed, if I'm still smoking blunts and backwoods, trying to be like appealing to the world, like, other people who have platforms like Tim Ross, for instance, as crude as he is, when people like that go and talk to people about Jesus, at face value it sounds good, but there's a scripture about making somebody twice fit for hell. That's what I would be doing, and that's what people like Tim Ross's do. When you listen to what they're saying and it sounds good, they're like, oh yeah, I can curse still. Jesus gave me this language to meet people. Like, that's not true.
Right.
That's not true at all.
No.
And I would have had that effect on somebody and multiple people, especially if I am how people describe me to be. I'd make people twice fit for hell at that time, and I'm aware of that. And right now, it's the process of being okay with having the ups and downs of life, and knowing that it's my character that's being worked on ultimately. You know what I'm saying? Like it says in James 1, consider it pure joy, the suffering that we go through. And like it says in Romans about, the perseverance and what happens throughout this process. And it's taking that and knowing that it's not for me.
Yeah.
It's for other people. Like, your path wasn't for you. It was for the people that you specifically have to minister to, whatever that means.
Yeah. Man, yeah, that was beautiful. And I love how you bring up like Tim Ross and pastors like that, or figures, public figures like that, because it's so true. And it's like I always say that the Bible does say be all things to all men. And so there is an aspect of relatability that is important, that we need to make sure that we do our best to have. But at the end of the day, I cannot sin to be relatable.
Yeah.
Because that's not what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Right? Jesus never sinned, yet he ate with sinners and tax collectors. Yeah. And so he was relatable enough to operate in those settings.
Yeah.
Yet he did not sin.
Yeah.
And if we're following Jesus, then that has to be our goal. We can't just be like, okay, well, I'm a sin. I'm doing this so that I can be relatable and so that I can be accepted. No. Yeah. Our righteousness, being like Jesus, is what, even though it may not be relatable, it's going to be attractive enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I love that you bring that up. So you're dating.
I am.
You got a girlfriend.
I do.
And you guys met in the church.
Yeah.
And how is this relationship different? Because you talked about, you had multiple relationships in the world. They were, pretty crazy.
Yeah.
How is this relationship different?
This one you know, it's like I feel like I'm dating and I actually have to deal with this girl's parents in a real way. Not like her literal mom and dad because she's not from the area, but if it's like our conversations, if I say something out of line through text, there's a possibility of somebody reading that and then it having a huge negative connotation on who I am. So it said that to say that my behavior is always under check and I'm not allowing myself to maneuver in ways that I usually would have maneuvered before, like setting hard boundaries and not going against those boundaries, not because of me or because of how it looks per se, but because I can't say that I love somebody and I still treat them or the relationship the way that I've treated other relationships. So it's taking everything I say and thinking about if her spiritual mentor were to read this message, what would she say about our relationship, about her and about me, if I say something that's inappropriate? And it's having the respect for her, you know, where before, like, I wouldn't really respect women or care about their feelings or what they go through or what I do to them. Before, it was always just about me and getting my pleasure and what I could get out of them, like having the mentality of the worst parts of my father's choice of life that he had when he was figuring out his way, taking that. So dating now is on top of being intentional about why we're together, you know what I'm saying? And finally having the desire to be like, maybe I could get married and live that life, which is scary. Before, like, why would I ever get married? I could just have my fill of the world. It's a process because I'm still learning areas of myself that are horrible. That I don't want to bring into this. You know? Before, like, I was it's fine, I guess, but I was an abusive guy before. You know, and it's like looking at someone who's so precious to you and not wanting to hurt them. Like, I look at her like I would look at my child, not in like a kid way, but in a way of like, I refuse to hurt you. I refuse to treat you like I've treated other people before. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to put my hands on you. I'm not going to let this turn into the way it used to be at all.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, come on, emotion. I told you he's a hearty guy. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. And Peyton's amazing. You guys are powerful together.
We're two different people.
No, very different people.
But it's important too.
Yeah, you know? Very different people. And I love how you said, like, somebody could read this message, and it's not like, you know, her spiritual mentor is sitting there like going through her phone. But at the end of the day, like, accountability keeps us all safe. You know, and so, you know, you get advice about her, and she gets advice about you. And how to respond and how to treat each other and how to, you know, and I think that's important because, like, at the end of the day, we never done this before God's way. We did it before the other way.
And look what happened.
You
know what I'm saying? It's funny because I believe now, like, with a grain of salt. So, two things. I think a lot of people that think relationships, even as disciples, because we're not above having these thoughts or these actions.
No.
But I think a lot of people that want to date because they're lonely or because they want sex, and that is what they think is their quickest way to do it, is a sign of you not being in touch with reality. You know what I'm saying? And, like, the way that we maneuver relationships as disciples is supposed to be like, it's for your enjoyment too, but people should be able to use your relationship as a template to coming to God, for disciples to being more godly in our approach to life and love, but also for people outside of the church that look at the relationship and say, I want to be like that. That's what it should be like. So my first thought is, what can I pull out of this? What kind of pleasure can I get from, what can I get from this relationship? And like, without having to really give up too much for it. But now it's, what can we do together to glorify God, but to also lead each other to heaven?
Wow.
Because ultimately, it's to make sure that I bring her to God without any bumps and bruises, is to get her to heaven unscathed. Where like a lot of people want to date because they're lonely and because there's a hole inside of them, and they're using other people to fill that hole in themselves. And even though we're disciples, we're still not above these negative traits and emotions that we have. And a lot of people aren't willing to do the improvement necessary spiritually to be in a position to have that responsibility. Because if I do have one out of line conversation with her, there's no telling where it's going to ultimately go. You know what I'm saying? Like, we look at things in this really small, one day at a time way, but I look at it from like, if I say something crazy to her right now with like with a perverse undertone behind it, that could simmer back up in 3 months to where now she's thinking about this, and now I'm thinking about this, and next thing we know, we're breaching other boundaries, and what that's going to do to her salvation, and what it's going to do to mine. You know what I'm saying? So there's a responsibility that we have with our relationships. We should be enjoying it too, but it's also not this thing to take advantage of, and God is not to be mocked.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I want to have a whole season of God What the Heck on relationships. For sure. But this has been an amazing conversation.
I've said some things.
Man, you're amazing. Okay, so last question. What if someone could take one thing away from this conversation that we've had about their own journey? Like, what would you want them to take away from this?
Anybody can change.
Anybody can change.
Anybody.
Yeah. And that's true. With God, you really can. Yeah.
It's impossible by ourselves. I mean, with God, all things are possible. But when you think about the cross, if the foot of the cross is level, so we all go to it humbly, and we all go to it broken. But literally, anybody should be able to, with the help of mentors and examples in their lives, should be able to go to the cross, touch the feet of Jesus, and walk away from it, knowing that this God-man in the flesh that didn't have to do any of this chose an excruciating death for you, for me, for you, so that we could walk away and be different. So if you're X amount of years as a disciple and nothing has changed, and you're still struggling with the same things you struggled with the first year of being a disciple, you need to ask yourself, like, am I really a disciple? Or am I just doing the right things because it seems okay? And there are a lot of people that come to churches, they've never had power in the real world before. They've never seen life. They've never been in these circumstances. And when they become disciples, or when they join churches, their first reaction and first desire is like to get power from it, or to build status in this situation around people that are going after renewing their minds. And there's like a lot of people want to take advantage of environments like this. You know what I'm saying? So it's the change that should come from it should be like a complete new beginning of yourself, like unapologetically.
Yeah. And even if you haven't become a disciple yet, or you haven't chosen to follow Jesus, like looking at your story and being like, but it is possible to change. And that's why this podcast is here. For real. That's why we're here, is just to show people that change is possible with Jesus. I said that was the last question, but really this is the last question. Sorry. Where can people find you if they want to find you?
On all platforms, I am Sevauge, Sevauge. Find me anywhere.
Come on, Sevauge. And I'll link that in the description below with this episode. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, for being vulnerable, for man, the first tears on God, what the heck? I totally did not think they would be mine, but amen. And thank you for being here and joining us. If you've gotten anything out of this episode, please like, comment, share it with someone you love. If you want to study the Bible, there's a link in the description box where you can send us your information, and you can do that. If you are interested in being a part of chemical recovery, or just want to talk, that is the same link. You can leave a note with your information, and we'll get back to you. If you want to grab the book, it's on Amazon. All the links, all the stuff is in the bio. So don't forget to subscribe, and we'll be back with more episodes. Bye. Bye. Yay! We did it. Oh, you're awesome. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.